Hi guys, my name's Natalia and welcome back to my channel where I talk about books. So today I wanted to share with you some of my favorite tropes and give you recommendations of some books that contain these tropes. So I did kind of like a ranking, but I guess I just did it for fun because I just really like all of these tropes. But anyway, I prepared my top 10 tropes, and let's start with number 10, which is unreliable narrator. So this is the trope where the narrator's credibility is somewhat compromised and we just cannot really trust the narrator because the narrator either deliberately or not deliberately either conceals some information or like is lying in some way. Okay, and when it comes to recommendations, there is this one book that first came to my mind. Now, I'm not sure if telling you that this book has an unreliable narrator, is this some kind of a spoiler? I'm not sure. Like, obviously you still will not know in what way he's unreliable or what kind of information he's concealing. But if you feel like it's a spoiler and you do not want to know that there's an unreliable narrator before reading, just skip to the next part. I usually put timestamps in the description. And the book that I wanted to recommend is The Silent Patient. It is a psychological thriller about a woman named Alicia who shot her husband 5 times in the face, and after that she stopped speaking. And there is this psychotherapist who is really eager to make her speak, and that is what this story is about. It's really interesting. I think the plot twist was crazy, so I highly recommend that one. The next trope is family secrets. So this trope basically entails some sort of secrets within a family. So I've got 2 recommendations for you. The first one is a thriller, I guess. I think it's sometimes classified as a horror, but I would say it's like a mystery thriller called Home Before Dark. So this book is told in a split narrative. We have the narrative of Maggie, who is narrating like what is happening in the current day, and then we also have passages from a book that her father had written, and in his book he describes the time that they lived in this mansion that was supposedly haunted, and he just talks about how they had to leave the mansion because it was just too haunted and they couldn't stand it. But Maggie, she was a child when all of that happened, so she doesn't really remember anything about living in that house, and she's just not sure if it's actually haunted or not. So then after her father passed away and she inherited the house from him, she decided to actually go to this house and try to solve the mystery of what happened in that house, whether it was actually haunted or not. That book was just full of plot twists. I thought it was crazy. It's one of the best thrillers I've ever read, and I would highly recommend this. Okay, and the second book with like family secrets trope is The Inheritance Game. It's actually a book series, but this is the first book, and it talks about Avery, who inherited this huge fortune from a man she does not know, she has never met. And then she's invited to go and live in his mansion with his family, and this family has like a lot of secrets. It's really twisted, and she has to also solve the puzzles that the man that left her the inheritance left for her. And there's just so much family drama in this book. At some point I was like, I think I need a family tree because I'm getting confused. Like, it gets really twisted, but it's really fun and quick read. The chapters are so short, so I feel like it's a good book if you want something quick and easy to read, or maybe if you are in a reading slump. I feel like this is such a fun series to read. Hi, it's me from the future editing, and I forgot to introduce the next trope. So I'm telling you now that it's when the characters are stuck somewhere or trapped somewhere. Enjoy. Okay, so I've got two books to recommend to you. The first one is Five Survive by Holly Jackson, which is a young adult thriller. And basically, this group of friends goes on a trip in their RV. But at some point, the RV breaks down in the middle of nowhere and there is no cell service, so they cannot really contact anyone. And soon they realize that it was not an accident. They were trapped there on purpose by someone who wants them dead. So they are trapped in this RV with a sniper who is outside targeting them. It's really such a thrilling read. It was really terrifying, and while I was reading it, I just felt like I was with them inside that RV fighting for my life. That's how scary this was. I honestly love this, one of my favorite young adult thrillers, and I highly recommend this one. The second book that came to my mind was The Shining by Stephen King. I read it a few years ago, but I just remember really loving it. And obviously the story is that Jack accepts a position as an off-season caretaker in this hotel. So he goes there with his wife and his son, but they end up being trapped by the snow, so they cannot really leave the hotel. And they're trapped there, and it gets really scary and creepy, so I do recommend that one as well. The next trope is a small town mystery. There is just something about small town where people it seems like everyone just knows everyone and they're somehow connected. I feel like it just makes solving mysteries so much fun. So the first book that came into my mind was obviously A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, which is literally one of my favorite books of all time. So in this book, we follow Pip, who decides to re-examine a closed murder case that occurred in her small town. And she ends up uncovering a lot of secrets that the town is holding. It's crazy. The plot twists are crazy. This book is just so interesting. Okay, so the next trope that I really love is when a book has some sort of bookish theme to it. So what do I mean by that? I mean that the story kind of revolves around books. So for example, maybe the main character is a writer or just an avid reader, or maybe a library owner, something like that. So the first book that came into my mind with this theme was A Study in Drowning, which I actually finished reading very recently, and I gave it 5 stars. So it is a blend of dark academia and fantasy and mystery, but it does revolve around books and literature in general. So in this book we follow Effie, who, she's an architecture student, but she really wanted to be a literature student. It's just she was not allowed to because she's a girl. Well, that's the world that was created in this book. And there was this author that she really loved, and he wrote her favorite book, and there was this contest for the architecture students to design the manor that belongs to the late author, who is Effie's favorite author. And she submitted her project, and surprisingly she won, even though she's just a first year student. So she goes there and she has to solve a mystery together with a literature student. So they talk about books a lot, and the book that the author wrote is the main component of this book. I really loved it. It was a great book and I highly recommend it, especially if you want a book that has some sort of bookish theme in it. Okay, so the next trope that I really love is any type of school setting. I would add, I love it especially when they have to live on the school premises in like a dorm or something like that, but they don't have to, as long as like I guess they spend most of the time in the school. I still love this sort of trope. So for that, I have actually quite a few recommendations. The first one is literally a school for vampires, and I'm talking here about Vampire Academy. I know it sounds like kind of silly, but it is actually really cool, and I really love this series. It's a series that consists of 6 books, but it is one of my favorite series that really got me into reading. So they are basically these vampires that attend this secret university that the humans do not know that it exists. Basically only vampires know about it, so it's really cool. The next book that also has a school setting is Ninth House. So this one is like a dark academia book. It talks about secret societies and magic and different things like that. So okay, the next book that also has a school setting is this young adult thriller mystery, Truly Devious. So yeah, it talks about this like murder mystery that our protagonist is trying to solve, and she does attend this like famous private school. Okay, and the last book that I want to recommend that has a school setting is another dark academia book called If We Were Villains. So it follows a group of acting students who are studying Shakespeare, and one semester like they were always given the same roles, and one semester the roles that they are given kind of change, which creates this tension within the group and sort of like chaos, which leads to some unfortunate events. So that's what this book is about, and it does have a school setting. The next trope is slow burn romance. Now, there's just something about a romance that just like it takes time for them to really realize their feelings and like fall for each other. Like the waiting for them to get together, it makes them finally coming together so sweet, and like you feel so much satisfaction because you waited for it for such a long time and it finally happened. It's also kind of realistic, I feel like. I mean, maybe some people fall in love instantly, but I feel like it takes some time, so it just feels realistic and it just really puts you on the edge. Like you're just waiting, oh, when are they gonna kiss, when are they finally gonna get together? I love this tension. Some of my favorite slow burn romances include The Cruel Prince, or the entire trilogy is called the Folk of the Air trilogy. It is also enemies to lovers, so sometimes it goes, I feel like slow burn goes very well with the enemies to lovers trope, or maybe academic rivals to lovers. It doesn't have to, but I feel like it goes very well because they go from hating each other to loving each other, and that obviously takes some time. So the next book that I think has a slow burn romance is Angel Fall, which is a post-apocalyptic fantasy novel about these angels coming down to destroy the earth. And I feel like it does take some time for the main characters to fall for each other. I feel like they truly become like a couple in the last book, and it is a trilogy, so yeah, it takes some time. And now the next trope that I really love is academic rivals to lovers. First of all, I love the academic setting. Like I said, the school setting, the academic setting is one of my favorite tropes. And when the two characters are rivals that just despise each other, but slowly over time end up falling for each other, I just love this trope so much. First one that comes to my mind is obviously a book that I already talked about, which is A Study in Drowning. So here we follow 2 students who are kind of rivals we could say, even though they end up working together in the end, but they do start off as rivals. The next book that I want to recommend is Divine Rivals. So basically they are both journalists who are fighting for the same position, and they do not really like each other at first, obviously, and it is a book about them, and then later they also become war correspondents, because in this universe there is this war between gods. That's the story of this book. I love it. It's actually one of my favorite books of all time, so I highly recommend this one. Okay, now the next trope is enemies to lovers. I already talked about that. Now I feel like enemies to lovers and academic rivals to lovers, they are kind of similar, like they give off similar vibes, but I feel like enemies to lovers, maybe it's more intense, and it doesn't necessarily include like academic setting. Literally the best enemies to lovers book that I've read was The Cruel Prince. They really go from enemies to lovers, like they really despise each other at first, and it is a slow burn, like I already mentioned. I feel like both of these tropes were just executed so well in this book, so if you like enemies to lovers and slow burn, I highly recommend this series. Okay, and now we're on to number one. So technically that's, you could say it's my favorite trope. Now I do love all of them, but I do have a really soft spot for this trope, and that trope is found family. I actually have not read many books with this trope, but I love it so much. So if you have any books with the found family trope that you want to recommend, please leave them down in the comments below, or any other trope that I mentioned here. I will gladly check out your recommendations, and maybe it will also help other people. But the number one book, the best book with the found family trope, in my opinion, is none other than the Six of Crows duology, which is one of my favorite series of all time. I love it so much, and the found family trope is so like precious and heartwarming. So in this book we follow a group of people who are not related, but they just become so close, almost like family, and I love all of these characters. And this book in general, it's so good. It talks about the group going on a heist, so it is a high stakes type of fantasy novel. It's amazing, and if you're looking for a good found family trope, then I highly recommend this one. Okay guys, so I guess that is the list of all my favorite tropes. Let me know your favorite tropes in the comments below. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!